Thank you very much. First, my tendency is to talk quickly. So I invite anybody while I'm talking, if I pick up speed too much, to just kind of put your hand up like, slow down, and I will try to slow back down. As I am unable to speak in your native language, I will force you to have to try and think in mine. As I'm going along also, think of this not as a presentation, but as a chance for us to discuss. Now, we are going to, after the talk, have a break, and then we will come back and we will have a discussion session. But as I'm going forward, if something comes up, I may use a term or a phrase. If something I am saying is not clear, it is okay to ask a question or clarification while I am presenting, okay? This isn't a formal thing. I think of this as an informal opportunity for us to exchange ideas. Matter of fact, the whole reason I'm over here for this 2-week period is just to talk and exchange and collaborate and to tie together better some of the efforts that we're doing with parallel and efforts here as we try to move. Even the talk, as I've titled it here, is National and Global Public Inclusive Infrastructures, that we will be building national public inclusive infrastructures, and we'll talk about that. But the real goal is to figure out how to network these together so that we can create a global infrastructure that supports accessibility. Now, Albert Einstein, this is one of my favorite quotes. It's, everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler. And I wish that we had something, a simple problem to talk about and a simple solution. But we don't. It is a very complex problem, and it has many components, and it's really important. So I'm going to start off today by just talking about some of the different aspects of this problem of allowing people to be able to access and use all of the technologies. Now, we can't create a simple solution, but I do believe that we can make a solution which is simple to the user. Now, when cars first came out, most of you are too young, actually we're all too young to remember that, but you used to have to, when you stepped on the gas, you also had to advance the spark, and you also had to adjust the choke, and you also had to set the points, and there were all of these things you had to do simultaneously just to get the car to run. Today, it's all automatic, and people get in. You don't even have to shift the gears anymore. You can just get into a car, and you start it, and it drives. It's very simple to use a car because the car is very complex inside. And so what we're going to be talking about is how to make things simpler. Simpler for users, simpler for clinicians, simpler for teachers, simpler for everybody. And then we'll talk about the infrastructure that we need to build to allow that to happen, and the fact that we need to have it happen. Now we have a lot of problems, and there are many causes for the problems in terms of access to the internet. And it's all driven by the fact that the internet is no longer optional. It is now becoming essential. So a lot of people who used to be able to avoid technology because it was too complicated or not accessible, and they could live without it, that's changing. It's no longer possible to run. In our country, people who've never used technology may go in to vote and find out they suddenly have to use a computerized voting system. There are places now, many of the companies, even a janitor's job you have to apply for online. So we need to be able to use it. But access solutions don't exist for everyone. We have really good solutions for some disabilities. We have good solutions for very bright blind people. But do we have screen readers that really work for individuals who are not in the top? If you've ever tried to use a screen reader, they are very complicated. And so think of the population as always having the very, very bright and all the way down the rest of the spectrum. Are we really creating technologies for the bottom half and not just for the top half? Cognitive language and learning is an area where we have a severe deficit of really good technologies for providing access. So we have many types, combinations, deaf blindness, etc. We don't have good solutions. The solutions don't necessarily work for the new technologies. It used to be that we would take our workstation and we would adapt it and then we could use it. But now we have to be able to use all these different types of technologies, kiosks. At universities, you run into different campuses and different courses, use different computers. And now we have cloud computing, we have Web 2.0. It used to be that you could provide access to Windows and Office and you were in good shape. Now we have web apps and we have thousands, millions actually, of people writing web applications that we're going to have to access and use. How are we going to be able to provide access? The solutions are just so complex, not just for users. Public access points usually only have one or two types of technology. They really can't deal with all the different technologies and for the different disabilities. Companies, even governments, they just throw up their hands if you actually start talking about providing all the different kinds of assistive technologies they need to use. An interesting one we found in our work recently is fear of the internet. There's a lot of people who are just afraid to get on the internet. And that fear, coupled with the complexity, means that they just stand back. They decide that they don't need it or they can't use it. They don't even try. And this is a problem that we need to also keep into mind, is that as we push people onto the internet, can we put them on in a fashion that they feel safe? Access solutions are hard to find and hard to find out about. There's a lot of people who don't even have any idea. They go up, they see the internet, they bounce off of it, and they have no idea that, in fact, it could be simpler, it could be easier, it could be more accessible. So if they don't know solutions exist, they don't even come looking for it. So we don't get a chance to help them because they never come to us, because they don't even believe that there's any reason. We don't go looking for things that don't exist. And the same thing. People can't afford the high cost. Again, it's not just users, public access points, even governments. We're currently satisfying, people estimate, between 3 and maybe 20% of people who need access technologies. And that's a huge gap between the number that need them and the number that we're able to serve. And we already are having trouble figuring out how to do the funding. So where are we going to find 5 and 10 times the funding? So this is an issue. We need to figure out how to bring the costs down. In addition, people need access to all the computers they encounter. It's not just the ability to access one computer anymore. We need to be able to access the full range of computers. And then underlying problems: limited markets, high cost for innovation, for people trying to get things to the market, limited support for research and development, limited communities of practice. You are a small community compared to the size you need to be to actually meet the full need. How do we grow our communities and the support structures? And then continuity of funding. Many of you in ONSE and stuff are very fortunate in that you have a continuous source of funding, but along in the research and development areas, and again, a number of you live in that world, you build a team, you start making progress, you get a grant, then if you don't get another one right behind it, you have to dissolve your team, reform. We really need to be talking more about how to create something that we can work together so that we can be doing handoffs and we can be continuing the progress, not restarting all the time. So we have a 4-part strategy we talk about. One is to foster innovation. One is to maximize the portion of accessibility that can be addressed through ordinary market mechanisms, and to minimize the part that needs to be done through government and philanthropic. We just have to do that because the problem is so big that we just can't. It can't be treated as a charity case. This has got to be business. We have to figure out how to make this work. We need to maximize the accessibility of mainstream products because we can't run around patching everything. You just plain can't get there if everything that a person with disability touches has got to be adapted. And now with technology all around us, we can't be that way. The way you make accessibility technology accessible is by patching it. We can't have every mainstream technology you encounter be something you have to fix in order to be accessible, because that just plain isn't going to work over the long haul. There's just too much to be able to do that. And then finally, after we've maximized, we've done all the parts that we can to make it so that mainstream and market forces serve, there's always the tail. There's always that group that isn't served. Right now it's like 80%. But even if we do a great job of moving this stuff out, we need to always figure out, how are we going to reach the unreached? How are we going to get to the people who don't have the resources, who aren't connected to us? Sometimes we say, well, but we serve people who don't have resources. But how many of them? What percentage have we reached? How do we reach the rest of the people? Now, we talk about the situation today as if this is all the people who need accessibility. So we have a large circle. I'm doing a little visual description as we go along here. So we have a big blank circle. And then we add that part which assistive technologies covers, and it's 5-10% of the people. And then we have universal design, the built-in accessibility, and that's covering another 5 or 10%. And so we're getting in that 10 to 20% of the people we're reaching. Actually, there's many individuals who could be reached by the built-in features, but they don't even know they're there, or they're too complicated to set up. And so people aren't using the stuff even that's built into the operating systems. Well, we can't fill this gap in the middle with government-funded or philanthropic efforts. It's just too large. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how to grow these two. We need to figure out how to make it so that commercial AT can cover more, and access that's built into systems can cover more, so that we can really push the envelope, if you will, so that we have a very little gap in the end, in the middle, that we need to try and fill with government and philanthropic, something that in fact might be closer to the size we can actually address. And again, I remind us that the key to the whole problem in the first place is that it's no longer optional. It's no longer, well, we'll serve those we can, and the rest, they'll get along like they have in the past by not using the technology. We somehow have got to get it into our heads, and more into the policy people's heads, that access to technology is no longer an option. So we have to figure out how to do this. So we talk about the national and global inclusive infrastructures, and what are these? There are three key goals to building this infrastructure. One is to simplify. We need to figure out how to make accessibility simpler for users, for public access points, for governments, for companies, everybody. It's just got to be a lot simpler than it is today. We need to be able to provide solutions for everyone, for all the different types and disabilities. One size of accessibility does not fit all. And even one size of product or one type of screen reader, we need a full range of screen readers. Those for really bright, technically oriented individuals, those for the middle average users who find the current high-powered ones complicated. And we need to find those for those people who are below average in terms of technology or cognition, their ability to deal with technologies. We need to figure out how to create screen readers for them, and the full range. And we don't now have that. And of course, across all the disabilities.